As always, this is a longer video, so feel free to watch along or just put me in the background. And with that said, my name is Anna Angel, and welcome back to my show, Glimpse. Okay, welcome back to our show. Welcome back to Glimpse. This is Glimpse episode 2, coming to you from my dorm room in Fordham University. I hope that my show can be a glimpse into the mind of a 19-year-old living in New York City. Today's episode is going to be kind of all over the place, but so was the last episode, and I can do what I want. It's my show. So first we're going to talk about specifically kind of what I want Glimpse to be. I had a conversation with my friend, and she was like asking me, what is this? And I was like, wait, I never really explained. So I was like, I'll explain what I want this to be. We're also going to talk about the return of Labi, the folk artist, and kind of his role in folk music history. We're going to talk about the defunding of public radio and how that's kind of, and like public media, and how that policy has kind of affected something that I love and has been very near and dear to my heart for a very long time. And we're also going to talk about New York City transplant kind of culture and gentrification, and how those kind of go hand in hand, and how I think that sometimes some blame is put where blame shouldn't be. As always, we're going to be talking about some personal anecdotes. Everything is my opinion, but I do research on everything I am talking about. And we also have our playlist of the week. All right, let's get into it. I am so excited. I've had a lot on my mind this week. It was President's Day weekend, so I got an extra day to think, and I already have too much time on my hands. I mean, I put a lot of effort into my schoolwork, and yet still I have so much time, especially because I'm just starting spring season for volleyball, so we're still just at like 2 practices a week. But today's beverage is a really full cup of tea. I'm drinking oolong, and we have my water, as always. With all this time, of course, I've had even more time to read the news. After releasing my first video, I had a really nice conversation with my teammate Erin on Wednesday morning after our lift about like why I'm doing Glimpse, and I realized I didn't really explain that at all. I just kind of posted a YouTube video, and I was like, why don't I just talk about it? Because I can do what I want. This is my show. So our first topic of the day is, why am I making Glimpse? I really want Glimpse to be like a fun and accessible way for people to learn about the world around them. I kind of spoke about this in the last video. There's a lot of analytics and a lot of research that's been done on the public, and specifically people my age, ages like 18 to 20. Or 18 to 25. And only about like 18% of us actually actively search out the news. People are like kind of aware of the world around them and are aware of things when they come across, something on their YouTube, something on their TikTok or their Instagram, but people are not searching out the news anymore like they should. And as I've said before, if you have the privilege and the time to scroll on your phone and look at TikTok for 2 hours, you can look at the news for 2 minutes. Or you can watch my YouTube channel and learn a little bit about that. I just wanted a place to kind of connect my creativity and my love for the news and current events, and in a fun and exciting way, and hopefully to create some sort of community, even if it's a small one, on my own pocket of the internet. I love editing, I love recording, I love the internet, and anything, like, this is what I want to do with my life, and I don't care, like, if I don't want to do YouTube for the rest of my life, but I want to work in media, I want to work something, I want to do something, and I hope that, like, Glimpse becomes something that I can, turn into a career or help me go into my career. And I anything along those lines, it makes me so happy, and it's why I made Glimpse. Just not to get sappy or whatever, but I hope that, the people who watch my videos enjoy them as much as I like making them, and I hope that it can, slowly, very slowly, but help increase our declining attention spans. Sometimes I feel like people have a hard time sitting down for a longer video. But hopefully, if you want to sit down for a longer video, you sit down and watch Glimpse. Going back to, our video as a whole. First, I want to talk about the defunding of public radio. I have been listening to NPR since I was little. My mom always put it on in the mornings when we were going to school or going to church or getting donuts on Saturday morning. I love NPR, even if I didn't know it was NPR. They have a show called Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me, which is like a game show, and I vividly remember like playing it along with my mom on Saturday mornings. And even now it's my main, choice of media consumption. I love NPR. They have the Tiny Desk concerts. They have a bunch of other programs that are really easy and to understand and really accessible. I also donate to NPR. I love NPR. I'll never talk about NPR. I love NPR. Also, public media along those lines is PBS. I watched Sesame Street when I was younger. I think many other people did. And when we talk about the defunding of public media and public radio, that includes companies like PBS, accessible educational programs. These are also being defunded. On May 1st, 2025, the Trump administration ended the subsidization of taxpayer money to biased media. In the order, the only medias that were specifically mentioned were NPR and PBS. This order led to shows like the ones I've named before to lose all of their government funding. There's almost 1,500 programs that go under the NPR or PBS umbrella. NPR and PBS are not just two things. They are like the hubs of branches of hundreds and hundreds of things and shows in every place and social economic area that you can imagine. There are so many of these programs that are suffering now that they don't have this public subsidization. Again, these programs are not just in high income areas. Not all of these programs can rely on viewer donations. There comes a point where media costs money. You're taking people's jobs. Sometimes, especially in these programs that are run in rural areas or run out of universities, they don't get the funding that they need, and they rely on that government subsidization, and without it, we're losing integral parts of our media. We're losing a level of accessibleness for the news and media and education that just because of this policy. In 1938, flashback, the FCC put in the policy that created this area of funds that are put towards public educational and non-commercial broadcasting, which is, I would argue, what PBS and NPR are. You could argue that they're maybe a little biased, but not to the level that they were defined by the Trump administration. Maybe I'm biased. I'm just a teenage girl that's sitting in my dorm room. I wouldn't agree that these programs are entirely biased in the way and to the level that it requires a defunding. I'm obviously, again, not a member of Congress, but I think that this policy is causing a lot more harm than good. Going back to my overarching philosophy of accessible media, when you take away funding for these accessible medias, it leads to the already very high levels of uneducated voters. I was not able to vote in the last presidential election. I wasn't old enough. But I was able to talk to my classmates that were able and eligible to vote. And sometimes, more often than not, it's pretty clear that a lot of the people going to our voting stations, people who are representing people who can't vote, are not entirely educated on the people that they're voting for. And I don't just mean this like in presidential elections. I mean this in local elections, in state elections, Congress, whatever, all types of elections. We live in a democracy, so we have the privilege to, vote on the people that we give power to. And I think the problem that comes with causing education and news to become less accessible is that you lose more and more people being able to even have the chance to be educated on the people that they're voting for. I will say myself that I do identify as a Democrat, but at the end of the day, I do my research on my candidate, and if in the next election I do the research, I understand the policies that are being put, that are being set by the people that are running, and to me the better candidate seems like the Republican candidate, I will vote Republican. This is the whole idea of educated voters. And I know that this is kind of like a branch off from what I was talking about, but things like these policies snowball into other things. They snowball into other areas. And once again, as a reminder, NPR is not just one dude. It's not just one program. It's thousands, it's hundreds of programs across all areas of our country, all areas of social economic levels, all anything. It's all encompassed by this, and with the defunding of these and not being able to give these programs the money that they need, you once again lose accessibility in a country that's all about accessibility. So I hope that made sense. I feel like I kind of rambled, but I think that some things were looked over, and to make a policy about biased media, that kind of seems like the choice was made a little bit biased. It kind of doesn't make sense. I don't know. I'm just the girl in my room. So, anyway, on a lighter note, I'd like to talk about Labi Siffre. Labi Siffre is a folk singer. He broke barriers through his career. He is a folk singer. He released his first album in the early 70s, I believe, and the last album he released was in 1998. Not to mention, one of my favorite singers of all time. I love him so much. And I love folk music, but specifically Labi Siffre, I love him. Recently he announced his newest album that's going to come out in 2026, almost 28 years after his last one. It's called Unfinished Business, and I kind of wanted to take some time to celebrate this by talking about kind of his contributions to the music industry and his uniqueness in the music industry. If you think that this name is foreign to you, I promise you it's not. I promise you you've heard his music somewhere, some way, somehow. He's been all over the industry. Even when he was like out of the spotlight, his music was still in the spotlight, if that makes sense. His songs were used in movies like The Holdovers and Sentimental Value, shows like This Is Us, and he's been sampled by your favorite rappers. Eminem, Jay-Z, they've all sampled him. Even Kanye West sampled him in I Wonder on the Graduation album, arguably the most popular song on that album. What I love about Siffre so much is that he is unapologetically himself. He is not just a singer, he's not just a poet, but he's a proud atheist, openly gay man, and is a proud black man in a world where white and religious supremacy were on the rise. So Siffre's career was mainly, when he was in the limelight, I would say is from the early 70s to the late 90s. I think it's pretty known that at this point folk music had been taken over by like white singers, stereotypically hippie singers in the 70s. And what made Siffre so unique is that he adamantly was like in this genre and shared his own stories, his own experiences with pride. He's been an activist his entire life. He's advocated for gay rights. He's advocated for civil rights his entire life and has never failed to do that. I kind of want to talk about folk music just a little bit. It's important to call back that many, and by many I mean many, American music genres were created by Black Americans. Obviously, they were inevitably taken over by white celebrities. Folk, among a bunch of other genres, all lead back to Black beginnings. I read this article in Culture Child, which I think puts it best. They said to deny the genesis of folk genre and its participants and to willingly participate in the erasure of Blackness from the folk tradition is absurd and unacceptable. I know. There has been an erasure of Black culture in American music. There's hundreds of documentaries about this. There's hundreds of articles that you can read about this. The Black community in America has shaped a lot of pop culture. One of those things being music, specifically folk music. They tie back to soul, and there's folk soul, and this is all, once again, things that draw back to communities that aren't attributed how they should be. I want to go back to Siffre. He always leaned on himself. He leaned on his experiences, and you can really feel it in his music. Siffre is not a folk soul artist. He's a strictly folk artist, but you can feel how genuine and authentic his words are. It's just good music. I remember listening to the Crying, Laughing, Living, Loving album for the first time because it popped up on my Spotify recommended. My mind was blown. I love all types of music. I am not limited to any specific genre or artists, but I remember listening to this album and I was like, oh my gosh, Siffre is the reason why I listen to folk music. It's just that good. And it's that good because he's so genuine to himself. And when talking about Siffre, you can't forget to talk about his homosexuality. One of the most important parts of Siffre's identity is the fact that he's gay. He was openly gay in a time when it was really not okay to be openly gay. He's got he's mentioned that a lot of his songs have ties to his experience as a gay Black man. He released a song in 2020, a single, which was the one song that he had between this 28-year break, called Love is Love, Why Isn't Love Enough? Which directly advocates for gay rights and his experiences as a gay man. But even though this song was released so late, I think it calls back to his commitment as an activist and how it's integral to all of his music. All of his music tells a story. All of his music talks about his experiences specifically, and even if they're not, like, the songs are not explicitly about his his experience as like being gay or his experience of being black, they still have stories. They still tell stories about his feelings. And that's why I love Siffre too, like, so much. Like, this is why I love him so much. And at the end of the day, I am so incredibly excited for his new album. And I think you should listen to it too. I mean, I'm just talking about music that I like, and to support an artist that stands for so much and is unapologetically themselves is something that I hope that, like, we can see in the new artists that are on the rise. And I think you can. I think there's new artists that have the capability to tell the stories to the level that Siffre does. And I'm excited for not only Siffre's new album, obviously, but for, music as a whole, as it evolves, obviously, whatever. My second to last point, I guess, is I want to talk about New York City gentrification and transplant culture. I love living in New York. I am, in every sense of the word, a transplant. I was not born here. I was not born anywhere near New York. I came here because I just wanted to move to New York. What is, like, the formal definition of an NYC transplant? It's basically someone who has moved to New York City, who didn't grow up in New York, and is planning on living there for the next few years. Someone who hasn't lived there, who has not lived there for at least 10 to 15 years. I'm a college student. I'm here to get my education first and foremost. So I could argue that I'm not really a transplant. I'm just a student. But yeah, this is kind of where my relation to being a transplant breaks off. Recently, being a transplant, like, the definition of a transplant has kind of become something else. This definition has kind of evolved into high income people that are already rich, that are coming to the city to be, like, a content creator, and people who are not open to learning about the culture and the diversity and the history of New York. Moving on, when I reference transplant, I'm talking about this definition of transplant and not just someone who's moved to New York. While it's become, like, kind of a joke for New Yorkers to, like, compare the differences between, like, New York natives and transplants, it's interesting for me to kind of dissect the idea of native New Yorkers blaming these new wave transplants for the detrimental, like, gentrification. New York City is being gentrified at a very fast rate. And you can read stories all over the news and social media about how native New Yorkers have been pushed out of their homes, have had their rents raised so much so that they can't afford the places that they've been living for years and years and years. And a lot of these ideas, people tend to lead them back to transplants. People blame these transplants. Here's where I combat that idea. Okay, transplants have obviously led to a very high increase in immigration. There has been an accelerating rise in immigration to New York for many years. And unfortunately, this rise in immigration, this rise in people that need to be homed, people that want to pay to be homed, has inevitably led to gentrification. This influx of people, also a lack of strong public policy when it comes to things like this, have once again caused people to be pushed out of their homes and businesses to be run out of their centuries-old held locations to make way for, like, these new age hipster bars and hole-in-the-wall restaurants. This new wave of gentrification blame, like, to transplants, I believe should actually be turned onto developers and investors. the area that attracts transplants in this, like, these high levels of immigration are newly gentrified locations, which wouldn't be there if the developers didn't do that. Like, the developers, I would argue, don't have New York City natives in mind. They have money in mind. Unfortunately, policymakers and politicians tend to favor this type of gentrification. It brings more and more money into a city. The mean wealth income in New York City is already incredibly high. But if a politician has the ability to, bring more money in, they're not gonna push it away, if that makes sense. And all of this is, like, unfortunately coming at the expense of natives that have been natives and whose families have been natives to New York for years and years and years. Another thing that, like, I think is important to keep in mind is kind of simple ideas of supply and demand. Bear with me, okay? I took intro to macro. I took intro to econ. But there's these simple ideas of supply and demand. There's this idea that these people coming in are what people are thinking that is causing their rent to go up. That's it. There's a lot more to it. And if you look at it from an economic perspective, from like a really introductory supply and demand economic perspective, what's causing the rent to go up, what's causing these raises in prices, is this new level of people obviously have a high demand. When there's high demand, prices can go up. And prices will go up until people won't pay them anymore. And what's happening in New York is that suppliers are raising the prices, and the willingness to pay is going up as well. The demand is not going down as the price goes up. So developers and owners of buildings are going to continue to raise their prices and raise their, like, things because people are willing to pay it. And the thing is, especially in New York, people are willing to pay it in rent. I think only like 30% of people in New York own their homes or their apartments. And this is the other thing, is like rent, there obviously is like stabilized rent in New York, but what happens with rent is that you can change it. Once a contract is up, you can, as a landlord, can adjust your rent prices. And if your developer is putting money in to renovate and gentrify the area around and make the area around even more expensive, unfortunately, the rent is going to raise that too. And while, yes, you can blame transplants for this, I think that it's important to remember that the people that are really doing this are higher up than this. And while there is an effect, like, there is a cause and effect here, the cause and effect is not one and done. It's like a cause that caused a cause to another cause to another cause to the effect. At the end of the day, sorry, it's like coughing. Ugh. Like really bad. I had to take a break. At the end of the day, I think it's important to keep in mind that, above all, especially in a large metropolitan area, money runs everything. And the more money that politicians and people can bring into their city, into their pockets, is what's going to drive all these other things. That's all I have for today. I feel like today's episode was a little more condensed, but I really hope, as I said before, that Glimpse becomes something where viewers like you come back and hopefully you learn something. Our playlist of the week today is 7 songs. We have Be Like a Woman by Chris Rainbow, These Days by Nico, Landslide by Fleetwood Mac, Distant Lover by Marvin Gaye, Canic Chase by Labi Siffre, Nothing Can Change This Love by Sam Cooke, and Right Down the Line by Jerry Rafferty. I've been in a very folk mood this week, but I don't know, I feel like I kind of touched on on something that was going on before, which was the defunding of public radio. But I think it's kind of getting worse in a way. I think it's important to look into the radio stations and the TV stations that are around you and see if you can donate. A little goes a long way when a lot of people donate. It's more than just losing programs. Jobs are lost, and let me not be like, but it's important to keep in mind. I hope you had a wonderful day. I hope you enjoyed. I love you. Have a great day.